Well, welcome back to Bold Line, where we talk about people and partnerships shaping Central Florida's workforce. I'm Pam Nabors, President and Chief Executive Officer for CareerSource Central Florida. We're the workforce development board here in all of the counties that surround Orlando. And today I am joined by a very special guest and a special friend for our new episode of Bold Line. So I'd like to welcome David Sprinkle to the podcast. David, we're so happy to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So let me talk a little bit about David. In addition to his many, many duties as vice chair of the CareerSource Central Florida Board, in his day job, he is the managing partner and executive recruiter at Veritas Recruiting Group, a staffing, recruiting, and executive search firm here in Central Florida. He has almost 30 years of experience in the employment services industry. You're rivaling me, David. He has a BA in economics from Harvard. He was actually recruited there to play football, right?
That's
Uh,
right.
when you were at Lake Brantley High School here in Central Florida.
hmm
And he is also, in addition to being on our board and really engaging and leaning in, he is also on the board of directors for Leadership Seminole, the Association for Corporate Growth Orlando chapter. And so I've got to ask him about this fun fact. He took a 2-month RV trip across the country with his family, which consists of 3 girls,
hmm
wife, 2 dogs, and drove 11,000 miles, saw 22 states, 17 national parks. And at the end, your family's still intact. You're still married.
Still
That's
married.
like, that is incredible. So, of all of those experiences, David, what was your favorite? Can you pick a favorite?
We hit a lot of national parks, so 17 national parks, and
Wow.
I
Wow.
had never gone to the national parks on in the Utah and in that Rocky Mountain area, and it's so
Mhm.
different than the East Coast national parks like the Everglades and even the Smoky Mountains. Those are so unique and special and awe-inspiring.
Yes.
Yosemite is a classic, and but Glacier National Park was very special as well, and then Arches was probably right up there. So those three, I have a hard time picking the top one out of those because they are so unique, so awe-inspiring, and we just had such a fantastic time and made great memories. So
Wow. Wow. That sounds like an incredible trip.
it
And you
was
got your
epic.
family together.
We
First
did. They
of
were
all.
younger, so it was like 2018, and so my
Okay.
youngest was just finishing kindergarten. My oldest
hmm
was just finishing fifth grade. So they all were elementary school age at the time, and so to be able to you basically took the whole summer, and I thought I was going to plug in and work, and that just didn't happen that much. So it ended up almost being, 2 months of almost completely unplugging from work, which
That's
was
amazing.
which was amazing as well.
Yes, and probably very refreshing just in terms of the work that we do. So let's talk about the work that you do.
Yeah.
You are such a mentor really to me because you are in this world of employment and training and you see firsthand from businesses that you work with what is happening on the front lines. Central Florida has really continued to grow. Often on
Mhm.
this podcast, David, we talk about a lot of the cool things that are happening in Central Florida, like advanced manufacturing, semiconductors, and our modeling and simulation, and our financial services. In addition to our amazing tourism.
Mhm.
But from your perspective, as you work with employers in our region, how do you think our business climate is as we sit here on a very cold Florida day in January? Maybe not as cold as the rest of the country, but do they feel like there's growth? Is it stability? Is there some adjustment happening? What's your thought?
It's certainly company by company. I think you talk to one company and you hear sob stories, and then you hear another company and they're like, "Man, we are growing, we're blowing up," and that's even within the industry. So we have some industries that are continuing to grow at a steady pace, and some that are maybe struggling a little bit or maybe not adding employees as fast as maybe they did in the last couple of years. So I would say it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I would say
Mhm.
overall, we're feeling that we've got a very stable, healthy environment. We've got some companies that are have done layoffs and some that are going,
Mhm.
great, let me hire those people and let's get going. So we do have what I would consider more of a healthy environment. It just doesn't
Mhm.
feel that way compared to a couple of years ago where everybody was hiring, everybody was
Yeah.
growing, and demand was off the charts. And that is
Mhm.
so unique in when you look at it from the long-term view, talk about 30
Yes.
years in the industry. Um, that was a very unique post-COVID time that people thought, oh, this is the new normal. And so then we got used to it for a couple of years.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's just that's not normal. What we experienced was not normal. What we've got now is really a healthy, growing, stable economy, locally at least.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I started in workforce development really, on the other end of the business cycle where our businesses were laying off and, helping people readjust in the market. And I absolutely agree with you. To your point, I look back over the time and there's like a time when they're hiring and a time when they're contracting a little bit, but there's an ebb and flow. But then in that post-COVID period, it was like you couldn't find enough people to send and recruit to businesses and in all industries. Really, there
Right.
wasn't any industry that wasn't struggling to try to find people. From a recruiting perspective, thinking about industries that are still struggling to find talent, I know you work with particularly financial services and accounting kinds of professional roles. What are you seeing in terms of industries that are still really kind of struggling to find talent?
Well, so we place across all industries,
Okay.
and so we're more positionally focused. So we typically are placing people in accounting departments, finance departments, HR departments. So the corporate, administrative, back office folks across all industries. And for the last couple of years, uh, we've done a lot of business in probably the biggest industry that we've done business with here locally is in the construction industry. It's
Okay.
seen a lot of continued growth. And when we talk to those people, they also talk about how they cannot find skilled labor. And
Mhm.
it's not what
Yes.
we do as my organization, but I'm able to, thankfully be on the board of CareerSource and to say,
Yes.
well, hey, have you engaged with CareerSource? And if you haven't, I can, let me point you in the right direction. Um, because it is so hard from a skills gap. And we see that across the board with skilled labor in general, across all industries. Construction is just a great example of that, of where companies have such a hard time finding skilled labor. And I throw accounting and finance into the skilled labor pool because it,
Yes.
it is a skill that they've had to develop over time. And so they have a hard time. That's why they need my firm and the other firms that do what I do, is because it is really hard to find good people. And so even during COVID, where there was still that need for, okay, so and so left, and now I still need to find somebody because I need somebody to do that work. And
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
skilled labor is very difficult to find across the board. We've got some industries that the healthcare industry is huge. I mean, Central Florida, as you know, as you mentioned, the growing kind of cottage industries, and
Right.
then we've
Right.
got the three pillars of Central Florida, which would be tourism and hospitality, construction, and healthcare. And
Mhm.
so those three pillars enable all of the other little cottage
Right.
industries to continue to grow.
Right.
And so we see that the skilled labor, especially in healthcare, that's never going away, and
Mhm.
especially here locally. We've got a lot of aging population that moves to Florida, and so the need for nurses and those types of folks, they just can't find them, let alone the people to supervise those folks. And
Right.
so that middle management is getting really difficult now because we've got people aging out across all industries. So that middle management area has been an area where companies are starting to really get struggle and trying to hang on to those baby boomers and the Gen Xers that want to leave. And they say, no, 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 just give me a couple more years.
Yeah, don't go, don't go.
Right.
What I've always admired about Veritas too is that as you are, serving the client, the business, you also are very aware of serving the job seeker, that career seeker that's looking for that position. And you and I have had lots of conversations about the changing attitudes of people who are looking for jobs and how businesses are perceiving, what they're seeing come in. You talked about a minute ago, businesses, not finding necessarily the right fit. So, what do you hear from the businesses you're working with about the talent that they are seeing, recruited by Veritas or coming in a referral from CareerSource Central Florida or elsewhere?
It still is. I mean, there's one part is the skills. Does the talent have the skills to do the job that I need them to do?
Hmm.
And if not, are they trainable? And so, one of my mentors, when coached me on hiring my own team,
Hmm.
and said, "Look, you've got to identify the flags, and there's pink flags and there's red flags. If it's a red flag, walk away. This isn't the right fit." But if it's a pink flag, you need to analyze that and figure out what kind of a pink flag it is.
Hmm.
Is this a pink flag that it's who they are, and there's no amount of training or development that is going to change that.
Hmm.
And it's not maybe not ideal, but we can deal with it. And then the other pink flag is it's just a training and experience and development thing. And is that, either way, you have to put a plan together to deal with that pink flag.
Hmm.
What can you accept and what can you do? Some companies just can't invest the time into training someone up because so
Hmm.
they need to hire for the skill set. But a lot of, especially in this day and age where AI is advancing technology so fast, and companies are trying to figure out, we're still in the beginning stages of how and what can we do with these new AI tools that keep evolving. And so having talent that is trainable
Hmm.
and that is willing to learn at regardless of the level,
Hmm.
I think is something that we keep hearing in addition to just the skill set, but also that willingness to be adaptive and to a willingness to grow themselves. And so to be trainable, to be coachable, is important, especially when we're talking about using new tools that are rapidly advancing and trying to figure out how to layer that into the workflows. That's
Yeah.
a little unsettling for people if they're not used to it.
Yeah, I think it's unsettling too for businesses to, hear from candidates that they may even have skills that they need, but they may want, a different work-life balance. You and I talked a lot about how many candidates, not so much this year, but in 24 and 25 would say, well, I'm looking for a virtual job. I need to
Right.
be entirely virtual because they got accustomed to those opportunities being available. But so there's kind of an adaptation on both sides of the equation, right? An adaptation with businesses to, I love your analogy of the red flag and the pink flag. What new employee comes absolutely perfectly prepared, right? You have to train them in some way, but
Right.
but what are the things that you believe you can train over time, and do you have the time and resource to do that? And what are non-negotiables? I often hear non-negotiables are more attitudinal
Hmm.
or motivational, or, their first question isn't, can I work 10 to 3 all week long? Can I work from home 10 to 3 all week long? That's some of the things that I, will hear, and some of the jobs that you described, like you can't work 10 to 3 or you can't work virtually. Even if you're in a management level job in
Yeah.
construction, you have to be on site,
Right.
to support the people who are actually building the buildings, or for example. So yeah, you mentioned technology. As we sit here today, I believe the top story on the Wall Street Journal is that, Amazon is announcing another round of middle management,
Hmm.
layoffs due to advances and adaptations in technology and AI, I'm sure. Are you hearing those kinds of things at all from the businesses that you're working with? Or are you hearing any innovations or changes or adaptations that they're making?
What we hear a lot is we're trying to figure out how to use it.
Uh-huh.
That when we do, we run into issues
Hmm.
because it's not perfect. Even when simple tasks like
Hmm.
transcribing and summarizing, it's still not 100% accurate. And
No.
unless you tell it to not make stuff up, it makes stuff up.
Mhm.
But the tools are getting better. The promises right now of oh well this tool is going to do that job completely is we're not seeing it to the
Hmm.
degree that I think some companies initially hoped. Now, the companies like Amazon that have already for 10 plus years been using automation and robotics and things of that nature. They've been in that process and they're the leading edge and cutting edge of that. But most of Central Florida is not Amazon type
No,
companies. Most
no.
of Central Florida is mid and small size companies.
Yes.
Mid and small size companies have not been developing their own internal tech and spending billions of dollars on it. No, they're trying to figure out how do I make the best cost decisions in terms of what tools that we're going to use and how do
Hmm.
we implement that into the workflow and how do I get my employees who are used to doing things a certain way and then I've got to layer in a change without upsetting the apple cart. And so
Hmm.
we see that a lot. And so that's where I think the being open to changing technology is a good thing. So from a candidate perspective, if you're looking to change a job or if you're looking to
Hmm.
excel in your current job, being open to change, being open to using new tools and how it might make your job more efficient and more productive, that's a good thing. And that's going to be a feather in your cap with your current company and the next company.
Hmm.
I think the pendulum has shifted back to from a hybrid, remote workforce. Now
Right.
we're a hybrid in office, at least for the white collar folks.
Yes.
I would say 50% of the jobs that we work on are 5 days a week in office.
Hmm.
And the other 50% are some version of hybrid and very little, if any, remote anymore. So I think those days and those types of positions, while they're still out there, it's not what it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
No. And I know you had also made the point as we were talking about that once before that if you're looking only remote, you're now competing with the whole world. You're
The
not
whole
just
world.
looking for a job in your particular town or in your region. So
Right.
yeah, it really has shifted. So interesting using AI. Have you and Veritas used any AI tools? I'm just curious because I know and I think we've talked a little bit about how CareerSource Central Florida has used some AI tools in our work. But what are you using any? Have you
Yeah, we do. We do.
applied it yet?
Yeah, thankfully, some of the software platforms that we were already using have baked in AI into the platforms. The one that we use the most is transcription software or
Mhm, mhm,
transcription, and so that ability to take a transcription from a conversation, from an interview, from if we're doing an intake with a client and getting all the information, it is amazing how much I miss and when I'm talking to somebody because I'm
mhm.
I'm thinking about
Right.
something else and they spurred
Yeah.
and then I didn't hear what they said,
Hmm.
or I'm trying to take notes and even I'm a fast typist but uh, AI is a much faster typist than I
Yes.
am and so it that has been really it's allowed us to be more thorough and to make sure that we're
Mhm.
catching everything.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then to be able to plug it into either chat or perplexity, there's Gemini. We're a Google-based company, so Gemini's kind
Mhm,
of baked in already. And to be able to plug it into that and get a detailed summary is very helpful, because then when we go back to we talk to so many people and it's hard to remember every
yeah.
conversation in the nitty gritty. So to be able to get that into our database, so that we can go back and make better matches about what people want on either
Mhm,
side of the equation, is so helpful in our business. So that's probably the biggest tool.
mhm,
We certainly will use, chat and the
mhm.
like from a brainstorming, come up with ideas, copywriting, things of that nature. But it's
Program names,
yeah, yeah, lots of
campaign names.
yeah, anything that, if we're trying to put a sequence together to do outreach,
Yeah.
it really takes a lot of the grunt work away and remove some of that writer's roadblock
Hmm.
that people get into to just be able to go, look, I need some ideas I, to do this outreach. I want to follow up with my, the candidates that I've interviewed over the last,
Hmm.
several months, and so to come up with content. Um, the hard part is that when you send things without editing them and without personalizing them, it smells of AI.
Yes.
and then it comes off very inauthentic.
Yes.
And so I think we've seen enough of it now in the short period of time that we've
Yeah.
had AI that it becomes a turnoff almost. And so so really being able to be the editors of,
Mhm.
of it's, and I still look at this as it's a really smart intern. You wouldn't just take the intern's product and
Right.
send it to the market, and yet people do because it's the easy button. They go, oh, look, it's the easy button. Let me just hit that and send it out.
Oh my
So we
gosh.
really have to coach on that
Yes.
from a management standpoint,
Mhm.
to go, no, you have to review the data before you put it in front of the customer, and because you want to make sure that it's authentically you, and it should just be helping you with your work, not doing your work for you.
Right. Yeah, it's way too nice.
Oh yeah.
The Copilot is what we use in our environment. And to your point, I love the summarization and collecting all the data, but I find in the writing or what it's just nice. It wants to please you all the time.
Oh yeah.
So you really, the editing is really critical. And I think, as we think about people looking for jobs, it's tempting to, utilize those kinds of tools. But to your point, you really do have to be the editor. You have to always, personalize and customize your approach to a particular business or a particular job. And that, that AI tool is to your point, is going to be an intern for you, but not necessarily you.
Well, and it makes stuff up. And so,
Yes.
and even when you give it very specific instructions not to make stuff up, it still makes stuff up. And so that can get a job seeker into a little bit of hot water when they're applying for a job, especially if they're saying, "Oh, I'm going to customize my resume to fit that job posting." Well, be careful because it's going to take stuff from the job posting that you don't have experience in. It's going to plug it into your resume. And so if you don't edit that and make sure that
Yes.
everything in there is accurate, then you're going to get caught when you start interviewing, and then they start asking you questions about your experience with that, and you're going to go, "What? I don't have that." Well, it says it
Right.
right here on your resume, and it's like, "Oh, well, AI wrote it," and that's not an excuse. So,
Yeah, and not a good answer to a question in an interview, definitely.
no, no,
Absolutely not.
not at all, not at all.
We've in sort of in wrapping up, we've talked about, and I agree with you. I think that here in Central Florida, our business climate is still very strong. And, with our pillar industries, with our growing cottage industries, we do have a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of people continuing to move into our region, and the business climate, really does stay strong here. As you think about people, though, who are out there looking, we hear a lot about college graduates in particular struggling, though, as they come out of college to get their foot in the door, into that first interview or that first job. So, what is a really important piece of advice that you give your job seekers when they're heading out, on a referral from you?
Yeah, definitely. So, and it's not just the recent grads; it's also people my age and older that are trying to career transition, and they're fine,
Yes.
and they run into a lot of issues.
Yes.
And both of those generations and the middle and the generations in the middle, they approach the job search from a what do I want?
Hmm.
And so they come into it with I want work-life flexibility, I want this, I want that. And they forget that their job when they're job searching
Hmm.
is not to say this is what I want.
Hmm.
It's to start communicating this is what I can do for you,
Hmm.
because it's the employer that's making the investment.
Right.
So think of it in terms of, if I'm looking for work, I'm actually looking for investors in David Sprinkle
Hmm.
company. And if they're going to pay me to do work, then I need to be able to show them that I'm a good return on investment,
Hmm.
that they're going to get more value than what it costs to pay me.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. So that's what we try to coach the young, the old, is they need to start communicating both on their resume. Most people make what the resume mistake that they make is they go, "Oh, I have to look for a job. So, what was my job title? Where did I work? And what was
Yeah.
the job description?" And they
Yes.
just put that in there. And then it's time to look again. That all moves down, same, and it's just job descriptions.
Yes.
And it's not results oriented. It's not the value that they brought to that organization. And so
Mhm.
that's what we want to communicate. both in interviews and our resume, every communication, all of our outreach needs to be, this is the value that I've brought my previous employers. These are the
Mhm.
results that I got. These are the how I help them with cash flow, with profit, with efficiency, time efficiencies, all of those things, and be able to talk about those results,
Mhm.
and both in the written word and the verbal word. The more you do that, the more you stand out, because most people don't do that. They just list their job duties and they go, well, what'd you do here? And I go, well, this is what I did. I did X, Y, and Z. And
Yeah.
they don't tie it back to the, here's here's the return on investment that I got them. So if I did it for them, I can potentially do it for you. And those are the people that get the jobs
Mhm.
faster,
Yes.
and the ones that are just going, well, here's what I did, but here's what I want. Let me talk about what I want. And well, you're not going to get very far doing that.
Yeah. I always learned from you. I love the idea of investment. And, then when you get past that and you are further down the line, you can think about negotiation and, understand more about the job. I feel like that I've been saying that for 30 years of my career. You probably feel that way too. So one thing hasn't changed, and that is kind of the attitude sometimes that we are continuing to coach in that labor market that's out there. But David, you are so amazing. I learned so much from you. I am so fortunate to have you as a board member, and I am very grateful for you to be here this afternoon and be a part of our Bold Line podcast. So thank you for sharing your thoughts and insight.
Thank you for having me. I'm humbled that you even say that, because you do such great work there, and I like to glean and think of you as a mentor as well. And so
Oh,
it's kind of fun to hear that and to know that we're able to learn from each other, and it's very humbling to hear that. And so I thank you for that, and
oh,
I'm proud to be on the board and to represent CareerSource, because of you and the team that you've built there, and the good work that the team's doing. So it's makes it easy to tell people, oh yeah, no, I'm on that board, because
great.
it's a good organization to represent.
David, this has been an amazing conversation. If people want to find out more about Veritas recruiting, how can they do that?
Yeah, our website is the best place to go. That's veritasrecruitinggroup.com. So VERITAS recruitinggroup.com. And
Check
we're
it
also on
out.
LinkedIn. You totally find us on LinkedIn, Veritas Recruiting Group. We're there,
Yes, he'll connect with you. Great.
100%.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you want to learn more about how education and workforce development connect right here in Central Florida, be sure to follow us and join the conversation. We'll see you next time.